You don't need much imagination to figure out what the shaykh is to tonight's shir with the parsha is. Because in parshas Nasai we find for the first time, actually the only time the mitzvah asay deraisa of birchas kahanim. The mitzvah of birchas kahanim is counted by all the many ha-mitzvahs. It's a mitzvah asay deraisa, and the chinuch counts it in mitzvah shinai in ches. And he writes in Itztavu ha-kehanim sheyivorchu Yisrael b'chol yom shenemar k'vayis yivorchu l'sbnei Yisrael amor lahem. Mitzvah asay deraisa of the kehanim to give a bracha to Klal Yisrael. The chinuch writes b'chol yom that the mitzvah applies every single day. We in Chutz La'aretz do not bench. We do not have birchas kahanim every single day. We've discussed that in the past. We've discussed different facets of this mitzvah, but our minig in Chutz La'aretz is in fact only to have the duchanin of birchas kahanim only on the shalosh regalim. It is in fact the minig of the Sfardim to have birchas kahanim on every day, and there are in fact kehilas among Sfardim that do practice this. And of course, if you've ever been to Eretz Yisrael, you know that they in fact have birchas kahanim every single shacharis. The reason we don't do the Chutz La'aretz is because the reason is given that we are so preoccupied with needs of parnasa, so we're not in the right type of frame of mind to give the bracha. But we're not going to go into that. What we are going to discuss tonight is an interesting shita of the Sefer Charedim. The Sefer Charedim is an early Achron who lived in the 1500s. He died actually in 1600. And the Sefer Charedim was a contemporary of the Ma'abit and the Ma'arit, which are from the very early Achronim. So the Sefer Charedim also has a collection of mitzvahs divided according to his special way of dividing them. And the Sefer Charedim writes, Levorech Kehen es Yisrael shenemar Kais Vorach es Bnei Yisrael v'Yisrael ha'oimdim ponim k'neged Bnei HaKehanim b'shtika u'mechavin libam lekabel berchosam k'dvar Hashem heim nami bichlal ha'mitzvah. The Charedim says a very interesting thing, that not only is there a mitzvah on the Kehanim to give birchas kahanim, but there's a mitzvah incumbent upon Klal Yisrael to be blessed and to receive the bracha. I guess this would perhaps qualify as the easiest mitzvah that there is. All you have to do is stand there and get a bracha. What could be easier? What could be better? But the lashon of the Sefer Charedim is the Yisrael ha'oimdim ponim k'neged ha'kehanim, Klal Yisrael that stands facing the kehanim b'shtika, silently, u'mechavnim libam lekabel birchasam k'dvar Hashem, and they have intention of receiving the bracha as is the will of the Rebbeinu Shalom, hein nami bichlal ha'mitzvah. So not only is there a mitzvah on Kehanim to bless Klal Yisrael, there is in fact a mitzvah on Klal Yisrael to be blessed. Azay zok the Sefer Charedim. This is what we're going to discuss tonight. The first thing that we have to determine tonight is what exactly does the Sefer Charedim mean? Does the Sefer Charedim merely mean that we Klal Yisrael, I say we because I'm not a Kayin, does that mean that we, because for lack of a better expression, you'll be meichel me, because it in fact takes two to tango, which means because you need, when you have a mavarech, you need a mizbarech. So therefore, what the Sefer Charedim merely means is you aid and abet in the kiyum and the fulfillment of this mitzvah, which means you're merely just an object. If the Kehanim can't bless the walls, if there was no Yisraelim there, you couldn't really give the bracha. So therefore, you have to have someone to receive the bracha, So therefore the Sefer Haredim merely writes and says, hey, nami bichlal habrocha. All he means to say is that they are passive participants in the mitzvah to the extent that they have to be there for the bracha, in fact, to be chal and to take effect on somebody. But the Haredim doesn't mean that I, in fact, get a mitzvah asay deraisa when I'm isbarech. I get a mitzvah that I'm helping the kohen fulfill his mitzvah. It's a nice thing to do. You're aiding and abetting in the performance of a mitzvah, but the Haredim does not mean more than that. Or perhaps, on the other hand, the Haredim means what he says, or he actually means that there is, in fact, the mitzvah of Birchas Kehanim is on two sets of people. There's a mitzvah asay deraisa on the kohen to bench Klal Yisrael, and there's a mitzvah asay deraisa to be benched. And just like when the kohen benches Klal Yisrael, he's getting a schar for a kiyum mitzvah deraisa. Hu hadin, when you stand there and you get the bracha, you are fulfilling a mitzvah asay deraisa called Birchas Kehanim. Birchas Kehanim is a mitzvah on the kohen. This is the chiddush the Haredim tells us. It's a mitzvah that requires two people, and they're both equal partners in this mitzvah. And as such, there would be equal fulfillment of a kiyum mitzvah asay deraisa. That's the first thing that we have to determine. So this seems to be a machlokes ha'achreinim, how to understand the Sefer Haredim. The Shuvas Yehuda Ya'aleh from the Maria Assad, who was a Talmud, if I'm not mistaken, was a Talmud of the Noda Yehuda. The Maria Assad in Shuvas in Yehuda Ya'aleh or Achaim Siman Memvav seems to take the opinion of the former Tzad that this is merely begeder, aiding and abetting in the fulfillment of a mitzvah, but not more than that. Valkein, he writes, Kavanasai Raksha Hazorim He Bichlal HaMitzvah. Daikla Bichal Fishes Ulasim EF Shulakaim HaMitzvah. It's only because the kohen can't be mekayim the mitzvah. There's no Yisrael to bench. Imkein Mekable Habrocha He Nisayim Eisei Mitzvah. You're helping somebody fulfill a mitzvah. But don't go so far as to say that a Zorah Yisrael is mekayim a mitzvah by virtue of the fact that he's accepting the bracha. This would be analogous, I assume, that when you give an ani tzedakah, so the person who gives you the tzedakah is mekayim the mitzvah tzedakah. Are you going to go ahead and tell me that the ani that gets the money is mekayim a mitzvah tzedakah? No, he's just aiding and abetting in the performance of a mitzvah, but there is no kiyum a mitzvah on him. As he sagt the Yehuda Ya'aleh, that's his understanding of the Sefer Haredim. On the other hand, the Chassam Sofer seems to say that this is a bona fide mitzvah. That what the Haredim means is that not only do you, a kohen, have the obligation to give the bracha to Klal Yisrael, but we, Yisraelim, have an obligation to receive the bracha, a bona fide mitzvah. It's a mitzvah that involves two parties, and they're co-participants, and they get co-schar. How do you see this from the Chassam Sofer? Because the Chassam Sofer in Orach Chaim Siman Chavev was asked the Shaila, Oideis Sheilas Chacham Chatzi Tshuva, Bashir Sifsei Kayin Yishmu Das, Ladas Bispalulu Beveis Midrashay, V'nosa Kapov Shom, V'chayzer Bola Beis HaKnesses, U'maitzi Tzibur Bispalin, V'nosa Kapov Imoy Miyesh Levarech. In a shul, in a city that has multiple shuls, so what's the halacha? If a kohen is in one shul and he performs Birchas Kehanim with a bracha, and then he walks over to another shul, and lo and behold, they're holding by Birchas Kehanim. If this kohen who already benched Klal Yisrael and made the bracha, when he goes up the second time in the different shul, does he in fact make another bracha Does he make a bracha? Or do we say he already fulfilled his mitzvah, he doesn't make another bracha? Meaning, if you shake lulav in the morning, and you make a bracha, you're mekayim mitzvah to say deraisa of netilas lulav, and then later on in the day you find someone who has a nice resig, or for whatever reason it may be, you go and take somebody else, you don't make a second bracha, because you fulfilled your mitzvah. You may get a kiyum mitzvah shaking it again, but you don't have to make another bracha.
Why should we give it a make a bracha both by Shabbos and Muslim?
Well, some Sefer talks about that. I'm not going to repeat the question because we're going to get to that. But that's the shaila that some Sefer was asked. A kohen who benches two different communities in two different shuls, when he benches the second time, does he make a second bracha or not? So the Chassam Sefer goes through a whole back and forth. Zoktis Chassam Sefer, we call Makhaim Ladina nearly based Tfilah Shenes Shakris Musaf Pashut. Zoktis Chassam Sefer Farstetzach. Two different tefillas, you certainly make two brachas. And as you pointed out, you go to Eretz Yisrael, there's Shakris and Musaf, they bench Shakris, they bench Musaf. Pashut. Umaysi b'chol yoyim shemavorchen ba'ashkenaz v'nesias kapayim shakris musaf v'ne'ila v'ein peitze peh v'nochen u'ladina. That's no shayla. U'ba'oisei tzibur b'tfila achas ein lisa kapayim beis pamim b'shum oifen. To go ahead and to bench the same tzibur twice of the same tefillah, you certainly don't make a bracha. Writes the Chassam Sefer, you already went and was Yetzi Birchas Kehanim with Musaf in one shul, and then you went to a second shul, and it's now Musaf again. Do you make a second bracha? Because you're just repeating, you're making Birchas Kehanim of Musaf. Zok the Chassam Sefer. Yemein Sham Kehanim Yisa Yoda V'Yevarech. Zok the Chassam Sefer. You do go ahead, you do bench, you make a brach on the Birchas Kehanim. The reason is Kedei Lahaitzi Hatzibur Ulevarech Haisam. Kedei Lahaitzi Hatzibur. I can make another bracha for them because I'm being mitzi them. Mitzi them in what? They have no bracha. You know, Bishlam, you tell me, they have no mitzvah. Bishlam, you tell me, for instance, I go to one shul and I blow shofar. I have to make a bracha. I go to a second shul that hasn't heard shofar yet. I make another bracha. Why? Because it's their mitzvah. I already was Yetzi shofar. There it is, but they have to be Yetzi shofar as well. Zok the Chassam Sefer, when I go to shul A, and I make Birchas Kehanim with a bracha, and then I go to shul B, Zok the Chassam Sefer, you know why I make another bracha? To be lahaitzi hatzibur levarach haisam. To be mitzi them. You mitzi them in what? They're not Kehanim, they're Yisraelim. The answer is, you see, that this Chassam Sefer is going with the Shita, that Kishem, there's a mitzvah to mevarech, there's a mitzvah to be mizbarech. And that tzibur has an achrayus to be benched. And therefore, Zoktis Chassam Sefer, the kohen can make a second bracha for the same tefillah, the same tefillah's musaf. K'rei lahaitzi eisam. Azei Zokti Chassam Sefer. This also seems to be the shita of the haflah in Masechta Ksubis. There's a very famous haflah in Masechta Ksubis on the Chavdalet on the Beis. I would venture to say that this is perhaps, if not the most famous haflah in Masechta Ksubis, it's certainly within the top 5. If you trust my rating service, not that I consider myself a bucky in haflahs, but this is a very famous haflah. The Gemara says in Masechta Ksubis, Zor ha'oila l'duchen over ba'asei. The Gemara makes a statement that if a Zor, a non-kaying, duchens, He's Mavatal the Mitzvahs Asay Deraisa. Shalos, what does the Gemara mean? So Rashi in Suda says, there's a mitzvah atim v'leizorim, place of archu atim v'leizorim, the lav habol b'chol asay, it's an asay, that's Rashi Shita. But the Haflah says a very interesting thing. Zor ha'oilu l'duchan. If a non-kayin goes up to duchan, you know what mitzvah he's mavatal, like the Gemara says, Iver b'asay. He's mavatal the mitzvah of being benched. Because when he stands up there with the other Kehanim, he's not being gebenched. I say, of course he's being gebenched. Because the answer is, in order to be Yetzi Birchas Kehanim, it has to be Panim al Panim. It has to be the Yisraelim face in the Kehanim. If this guy, Mr. Zor, is up with the rest of the Kehanim, he's not getting his bracha. He's not getting his bracha because he's not facing them. He's up there with them. Zok the Haflah, that's the pshat in the Gemara. Zor ha'oilu l'duchan oiver ba'asei. What asei is that? It's the asay deraisa of birchas kahanim. Those hays there's a mitzvah asay deraisa, like the charedim, not only for the kohanim to bench, but for Klal Yisrael to be benched. And if you're standing side by side with the kohanim, you're not yaitz in the bracha because it has to be face to face, panim upanim. That's what the Gemara says in Seita.
What did the Gemara say? A guy walks out of the room.
What's that?
What did the Gemara say? A guy walks out of the room.
If the guy walks out of the room, because if the guy walks out of the room before the bracha, there's no bittul asay. We'll see that in a minute. It's only bishas the bracha if you do something to. The Gemara didn't say nothing. The Gemara just says Zor ha'oilu l'duchan is over basay. The Gemara leaves it blank. It's a blank. Einochinami. It's a blank slate. The Gemara merely says Zor ha'oilu l'duchan is over basay. Which asay? Where's there such an asay? So Zok the Haflah, the asay is the bittul einochinami. If a guy walked out in the middle of the brook, he'd also be mavatal the mitzvah. The Gemara doesn't say anything. The Gemara doesn't give a case. The Gemara merely makes a statement. Zor ha'oilu l'duchan oiver basay. You fill in the blanks. So Rashi says, because it says kaisav or chatem v'leizorim. Zok the Haflah, no. There's a mitzvah asay deraisa to be gebenched. Really, he stands up at the Kehanim. So he's being mavatal the mitzvah. But this rabbi said, the Haflah says a gewaldige pshat in a very famous Gemara. The Gemara says in Shabbos is also a famous Gemara. Rabbi Yissi miyomai le'avarti al divrei chaverai. Rabbi Yissi says, I always listened to what my friends told me. I was a compliant fellow. Whatever they told me to do, I did. Because I know I'm not a kayin. I know I'm not a kayin, but if my chaverim told me, go up there and duchen, I would do it anyway. As they state in the Gemara. As they sagt the Gemara. So parshas, Rabbi Yissi is going to be mavatal a mitzvah. Zor ha'oilu l'duchan over basay. I mean, it's one thing to be a nice guy, one thing to be compliant. But if your friends tell you to be, why don't Rabbi Yissi say, I would never do what my friends told me. If they would tell me don't eat matzah on Pesach, I would eat matzah on Pesach. Chas v'shalom. So what do you mean? If they told me go up and duchen, I would duchen anyway. I zor ha'oilu l'duchen over basay. So the Haflah gewaldige chap. You know what the case is? There was no kain in the room. So he said, Rabbi Yissi, you go up there. Make a lady on birchas kahanim. He gets up there, he knows the song, says, Yivarechacha. He's not over on anything. You know why? Because what's the whole issue of Zor duchening? He's missing out on the birchas kahanim. But there are no other kahanim. He's not missing out on anything. So Zok Rabbi Yissi, if there was no kain in the room, And they told me, go up and duchen, I would duchen. You know why? Because the only problem of a Zor going up to duchen is that when he's up there duchening, he's missing out on the bracha. But if there is no other kayin, the male is not mevatel anything. That's what Rabbi Yossi means. As he's up the haflo. The upshot, Rabbi Yossi, of all of this is that the haflo and the Chassam Sofer are of the opinion that when the Charedim says there's a mitzvah aseh on the Yisrael to be mizbarech and to be benched, he means it for keeps. And he means that there is an actual mitzvah aseh deraisa to be mizbarech. And when you stand there and you're being benched, you're mekayim a mitzvah. And enochinami, if you do something to circumvent that, i.e. standing up there with the rest of the kehanim, or as Mr. Weiss is saying, running out of the room, enochinami, Mr. Mavatal and mitzvah aseh. Azay Zokti, that's how the Chassam Sofer and the Chaflo understand the Charedim. So I saw in several places, one of them is, I saw this also as well in the Minchas Osher, but I saw this in other places as well. He wants to bring a raya to this shita, that there's an actual mitzvah to be mizbarech. Because the Shulchan Aruch Paskins in Orach Chaim, Siman Kuf Chav Ches Siv Chav Gimel, B'shah she'hakehanim mevarchen ha'om, v'lo yabitu v'lo yasichu daitam. The Shulchan Aruch Paskins that when a kayin goes up to duchen, they shouldn't look around, they shouldn't look at their hands, and they shouldn't let their minds wander. They should look down, as though they're davening. And the people that are out there, us Yisraelim, we should be mechaven that we're getting a bracha. We should face the kehanim. You're not allowed to look at the kehanim. The Gamar kehanim, the Ramo adds, lo yistaknu biyadeihem. And the kehanim shouldn't look at their hands either. Zok the Mishnah Brura. Why should you look at the kehanim's hands? So if I ask that question, take a poll, why shouldn't you look at the kehanim's hand? Everybody raise their hand would say, because if you look at the kehanim's hand, you're going to go blind. That's what you were taught when you were 5 years old, and that put the fear of God in you, and you haven't looked. Well, you haven't looked for a long time. You stuck a peek because you want to just make sure, and you're still seeing Baruch Hashem. But that's what most people will say. Why can't you look at the kehanim? Because you'll go blind. Zok the Mishnah Berurah, that's not the reason. You're not allowed to look at the kehanim, not to look at their hands. The reason Yisraelim are not allowed to look is because their minds shouldn't wander. Hesech hadas. But if you're not supposed to look at their hands because your mind's not supposed to wander, you have to have your mind on Birkas Kehanim. So certainly, after Mishnah Berurah, you shouldn't be looking around the shul to see what everybody else is doing. You're not supposed to stare. You're allowed to peek. Where does this come from? Because in the Beis Hamikdash, when there was Birchas Kehanim, Chazal tell us that the Shechina was shayra on the hands of the Kehanim. So what you heard when you were a kid, that if you look, you'll go blind, that part isn't right. But there's an emes to that, in that you shouldn't look, because Bizman Shebeis Hamikdash Hayakayim, the Shechina was on the street. You're not allowed to look at the Shechina. So Me'el Zok the Mishnah Berurah, that really, the reason is not really regea today. Mikol Mokom Noig in Gam Achshav Zeichel HaMikdash Shlo Lahavit Behen Klal. And that is why the Ramah brings in the Darkei Moshe that is the reason for the time-honored Minig Yisrael to cover one's face with the talis Bishas Birchas Kohen. And that is because this way you won't look. That's the mocker of that minig. That's why even people that don't wear with the talis over their head, but they put the talis over their head, put more over their head, they put mamish so they can't see. That's the mocker. But the halachic reason of why the Kehanim should not look at their hands, or the Yisraelim should not look at their hands, is why? Zok the Mishnah Berurah Shalo Yasichu Datam. Because it's Hesech Hadas. It's Hesech Hadas, their mind is wandering in the performance of a mitzvah. You're not allowed, when you're doing a mitzvah, you're supposed to be mechaven for the mitzvah. Bishleim all the Kehanim, they can't be Masiach Das, because they're mekayim mitzvah say the rice of Birchas Kayanim. But you, Yisrael, what are you? You're no better than a potted plant. They need someone to bench. They need someone to bench out there. So stand there. Who cares where your mind is? Your mind can be all over. What are you doing? You're being mizbarech. It's a passive activity. Elamai, you see from this halacha that it's not true. You're not allowed to be Masiach Das because you're being Mekayim Mitzvah, I'm being Mekayim Mitzvah. What mitzvah is that? That's the mitzvah of being Mizbarech. It's the mitzvah of being benched. And therefore, it's just like the Kayyid has to have Kavanah, Kuladin, I have to have Kavanah. So that's how the Sam Sefer understands it, that's how the Avlo understands it, that's seemingly what the Shulchan Aruch means as well, that there's a mamish, a mitzvah on the Yisrael to be Mizbarach. Yes?
How can you say that you have that Kavanah, I don't know, that's like your name, that's a thing to think about it.
But where Rav Tzvi Beinian is asking where that maybe you have to have kavanah to have for the bracha to have effect. Where do you see a halacha that in order for a bracha to have an effect, you have to have kavanah? Sometimes I'm standing there. Well, if it's a passive activity, then all I have to do is be there, just show up. Especially when you tell me it's a mitzvah, so there's a Hesach Hadas in mitzvah. Where is there a concept of Hesach Hadas in a bracha that you're receiving? Hesach Hadas when you're making a bracha, that's another thing, but not being gebenched.
If you go to say Omein.
What's that?
If you go to say Omein after the bracha, so you can't have Hesach Hadas.
Let me ask you, Charlotte, if you heard a half a bracha, and you didn't hear the first half of the bracha, can you say Amen? Can you say, yes, you can say Amen. See, Reb David Kramer is a Kayin, so he wants to be moved. That's true, but because you don't make a bracha, Reb David's asking, how come only the Kahana make the bracha? The answer to that is, you never find a bracha on a passive act. So if the Kehanim have to say something that you make a bracha. Being there, there's no pu'ula. So there's no bracha on an inactivity. Shofar is different. Alan's asking Shofar. The answer is because Shofar you're involved in a mitzvah called listening. Now maybe does not involve much movement, but there the mitzvah is lishmoya kol Shofar, and you with your own 2 ears are being mekayim that mitzvah. But that's a pa'ula. But being there isn't a pa'ula.
Getting a bench, right? When the golden dome is holding himself, did he make the bracha? Is that still casting?
No, that's because he's active. He's accepting the money, making the payment. However, Rabbi Isai, there is an afgemina between the mitzvah on the Kehanim to bench and the mitzvah on the Yisraelim to be gebenched. And that is that the Dvar Avram writes in Chelek Aleph, Siman Lamed Aleph, in Shuvas Dvar Avram was the Kof Nerov. He was one of the Masmichim of the Rashiva Zatzal, the Rashiva in his Sefer as Askome from the Dvar Avram, Rashiva Ruderman. So he says there is a chilek, and that is the Kehanim have to be mechazer achar hamitzvah, which means they have to make an effort to give the bracha. Israelim don't have to go after being mekayim the mitzvah. That's why if you want to walk out before Birchas Kohanim, you would be allowed to. That's what the Dvar Avram writes. He writes the Dvar Avram, the mitzvah al Yisrael is barech, even if we're going to accept that as a mitzvah to be gebenched. There's nevertheless a difference. Dal ha-kehanim mitzvah lechazer achareho ulekaimo ulevarech es Yisrael. The kehanim have to make an effort to fulfill this mitzvah. Let's say a kohen's not feeling well on a yontif. So he says, should I go to shul? Should I not go to shul? I'm not feeling so well. I'm a kohen. I'm going to be able to be mekayim birchas kohanim. I got to go to shul. But in Yisrael writes the Dvar Avram, but mikol himself raknai b'chalei mitzvah. But el shekir avol acharei shekar karu lahem uchuyaven lechazer lekayim hamitzvah v'imlav bitlu mitzvah say aval ha-Yisrael ein chiyav klal lechazer achar birchas kehanim afilu achar shekar lekehanim. You want to walk out of shul, I don't know why you want to do that. Before Birchas Kohanim, that's your prerogative. But a kohen has an obligation to make the bracha. That's the chiluk that the Dvar Avram says. Finally, Rabbi say one last shaila l'maisa. If you are for some reason still standing Shemini Esrei, when the kehanim are duchenim, what should you do? Should you stop in the middle of Shemini Esrei and listen to Birchas Kehanim, or should you continue on your merry way to Shemini Esrei? You hear the shaila? What should you do? Shaila l'maisa. You started Musaf late, or you're marach in your tefillah, whatever the situation may be, the kehanim are up to duchning, you're in the middle of Shemini Esrei, what should you do? Should you stay silent? Listen to the Birchas Kehanim? Like for instance, the halachas by Kedusha, as we explained in previous shiurim? Or does it make a difference? You can continue going on and davening. So this Rabbi Isai is a machlekes peiskei zmanenu. Ramesha Feinstein in the Igros Moshe, Chelik Dalet Siman Chaf Aleph, and the Shevet Halevi, Rav Vosner, and Chelik Gimel Siman Tezbov, both paskin lahalacha l'maisa, sheyishma birchas kehanim v'yasik mitfilosai kedei lishmaya. You stop, you listen, you get the bracha, you don't answer amen, obviously, but you listen, you pay attention during the bracha. So I saw in the Minchas Osher, he brings Achagoyim, Rabbi Yissocher Frand al Yashish, the Posak Sheyamshich B'Tfilosai. He continued davening. V'nimucha imay. And what's his reason? The Leigora mi Amshe B'Sodis. The Anisi v'Habracha Chala Aleim. Because he says, the Gemara says in Saita, that the people, the Amshe B'Sodis, remember, in other times they made Birchas Kohanim every single day. So let's say you can't make it to shul. So the Gemara says the people B'Sodis that have to work, they can't make it to shul, the bracha is chal on them anyway. So you're plowing your field, you're sowing your seeds. The Gemara says that the bracha is chal on you anyway. Say, if you're in shul, in the middle of davening, continue davening. You're no worse than the guys out there in the field that the Gemara says mefurish that the brachas chal on them. You should be silent. So the Minchas Osher time is very well. The Minchas Osher says that's a big chiluk. Because if you ask me in terms of whether the bracha is chal on you, yes, the bracha is chal on you, whether you're in the shul or not in the shul. But here we're talking about different inyan. We're talking about the mitzvah to be mizbarech. When you're in the shul, you're being mekayim a mitzvah asay the rice according to the charedim of being mizbarech. You have to have kavana for that. You can't be masiyach das. You have to stop davening. You have to stop davening. You have to be mechaven. The amsha b'soreis that are anisi out there, those guys are getting the bracha. You're getting the bracha, but there's no kiyum ha-mitzvah. But when you're in shul, not only do you get a bracha, but you get a mitzvah. You get a mitzvah being mizbarech. Amela zokt rameshen. Therefore, a person should stop in the middle of his Shema Esrei, wait for the Birchas Frand to be finished, and this way not only does he get a bracha, but he gets a mitzvah of being mizbarech as well. Pasuk says, in parshas Nosai, interesting parsha, will be a difficult parsha to explain. Daber Shem Moshe, Daber al Bnei Yisrael, Marshal and Ishish Kisishte Yishtay. The Torah tells us the parsha of Soita. Immediately preceding that parsha is a parsha that tells us that you have to give your matnas kahuna to the kohen. So Rashi wonders about the juxtaposition of the two parshas. Why does the parsha of Soita, the case of this woman who's suspected of being unfaithful, why does that immediately follow parsha Soita, the parsha of giving the matnas kuna? So Rashi writes over here, and Rashi says, "Makos of lamala v'yishas kadoshav lo yihu imata ma'akev matnas hakayin chayacha shetitztarech lovo yetzloi lahavi loy es hasoita." So Chazal are telling us that if a person refuses to give his matnas kahuna, that the Torah enumerates beforehand, the result will be that you'll eventually have to come to the kohen for him to go through the process of the Mesaita. The question is why? Why exactly is that the appropriate einish for the person who fails to give his matnas kahuna to the kohen? In this previous parsha, the way Rashi learns, the Torah talks about three types of matnas kahuna that you have to give to the kohen. Number one, gezel hager. If he stole from a ger, and now the ger died, and he has no heirs. Now every Jew ostensibly has some heirs, but a ger is possible that he has no heirs. So the halacha is you must return the stolen object or money to the kohen. That's what the pasuk means when it says, then the pasuk says, "V'chol truma l'chol kodshe b'nei Yisrael asher yakidu l'kayin lo yiyah," which Rashi interprets to mean that this is speaking about the mitzvah of bikurim, the first fruits. You have to give the first fruits to the kohen. And then the pasuk says, "V'yisas kadashav lo yiyah ish asher yitein l'kayin lo yiyah." Rashi explains this to mean that you don't have the right to withhold giving anything to the kohen. You have the right, Rashi says, of Toivas Hana to pick which kohen you want to give your matnas kahuna to, but to withhold them totally, you don't have the right to do. Those three things, Gezel Hager goes to the Kohen. Bikurim goes to the Kohen. And all matnas kahuna go to the Kohen. You only have the right to choose, but you don't have the right to withhold. Those are the three matnas kahuna that the Torah speaks about. Says Rashi in the next Rashi, if you fail to give them to the Kohen, then you're going to wind up having to come to the Kohen and ask him to perform for you the parshas Saita, the mitzvah Saita. So I saw an interesting ha'ara in a sefer called Shemen HaTayv, Volume Chelik Hay, which Dr. Rafael Leader just gave me 2 weeks ago. I've spoken out over the years many things from Rav Dov Weinberger from Williamsburg. So he wants to suggest a different pshat in why this, in fact, the connection between not giving to the Kohen and parshas Saita. And his point is, why doesn't a person give to the Kohen? What's the problem? So he says there is a psychology among people. People think that you want me to give to the Beis Hamikdash? Gesundheit. You want me to donate to the Berek Habayis? I can live with that. But why do I have to give my money to somebody else? That bothers people. To give it to God, to give it to the Rebbeinu Shalom, fine. But to give it to somebody else should profit off of me. That's difficult for people to come to terms with. You know, the famous phenomenon, which I've said on many occasions in different forms. But if you went out and you bought a roast for Yom Tov, and it cost you $90, and today that's not a guzma, and by accident milk came in, fell into the pot, and you go to the Rav, and the Rav asks, you ask you the protein, and the Rav says, I'm sorry, treif, it's basar b'cholov. $90 down the drain. What do you say? You say farfalin. Okay, that's the din. But if you get into a din Torah with somebody for the same $90, and the Rav paskins like the other fellow and you lose $90, then you're all upset. Why? $90 is $90, a din is a din. What's the difference? The difference is because when that guy is going to get from me, that bothers me. The roast is treif, nobody wins. I lose, he wins. That I can't be said. That's why the person is hesitant to give it to the Kohen. That's why people withhold their matnas kahuna. So how do we educate this person? He has a saita b'seif beisei. The Ramban says al HaTorah, the mitzvah saita, the parshas saita, is unique among all the mitzvahs of the Torah. It is the only mitzvah that involves a nes. For it to happen, a nes has to, literally a miracle has to happen. There's no such mitzvah like that. Every mitzvah, you don't need a nes min hashamayim. Parshas saita is different. Zok the Ramban, you know why? Because so important to shalom bayis to the Rebbeinu Shalom, he says, I'm going to intervene. When Rebbe Kamenetsky in his Sefer Leitzu, and he says, because when a man is chayshiv his wife, he suspects his wife of infidelity, the man will always not feel comfortable with his wife. Zok the Rebbeinu Shalom, I have to intervene. I'm telling you, Zok the Rebbeinu Shalom, I know what happens. And it did happen. That's the only way the person is going to live comfortably now. The Rebbeinu Shalom has to intervene. How do you get the Rebbeinu Shalom to intervene? The answer is, you go to the kohen, and all of a sudden it hits the guy. You go to the kohen. You know why? Because this man is the yad of the Rebbeinu Shalom. I'm not giving my money to somebody else. When I give the matnas kahuna, I'm giving it to somebody that literally is the shliach Hashem, shlucha derachmana. That's why the einish for parshas saita for withholding one's money is what? You have a saita, and you have to go to the kohen, and it hits you, and you understand what role the kohen plays. The kohen is a conduit. The kohen is a shliach. He's an agent of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And therefore you who were so hesitant, I should give my money to somebody else, you're giving your money to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Because now you know the role that Kehanim play. And one more ha'ara, Rabbi, along the same lines. This last pasuk, V'isas kadoshav lo yiyah. This is a redundant pasuk. That which you give to the kohen, lo yiyu. The man that gives the matnas kuna to the kohen, lo yiyu. What does this mean? So Rashi quotes the Gemara in Brachos. But I saw once in a sefer for a different kavanah. What this pasuk is telling us, Rabbi Isai, is that the only thing that a person has in this world that's his forever is the mitzvahs and the tzedakah that he gives. And no matter how much assets you may have, that's not really yours. It can be here today and gone tomorrow. But Isha's Kadashov Lo Yiyu Asher Yitei La Kohen. What you give to the kohen, Lo Yiyu. That you can take with you, and no one can take it away from you. I've said this word in the past. My general practice is I try not to repeat. But I'm repeating this word because today in 2008, there's a Maisa that comes with this word. It wasn't around the last time I said this word. Two different people sent me the following email, which is really an essay. And it's an essay by someone who was a vice president at Bear Stearns Incorporated. So for those of you who don't follow the financial world, Bear Stearns was a very old line investment banking institution that was 85 years old. It's from the old line WASPy companies, which happened to have many Jews in their employ. And in the course of one weekend, from a Friday afternoon to a Monday morning, Bear Stearns went belly up. And this entire company, billions and billions of dollars company, was sold, I think the final price was for $10 billion, which is mere pittance of what it was worth. Pennies on the dollar. So this, in Bear Stearns, as amazing as this may seem, there was a mincha minyan. It was started originally, I'm told, by somebody else in a stairwell in Bear Stearns. And it grew to the extent that they had a conference room every day for their mincha. And someone told me that on a regular mincha they would get 40 people, and on the tiniest they'd get 100 people. This fellow, as vice president, writes a farewell to the Bear Stearns mincha minyan. And I want you to listen to what the man says. After 2 great years at Bear and having been observant for about the same amount of time, I have chosen to exit Golis and the world of Gashmias in order to immerse myself in the Ruchnius, that I hope to find at Or Sameach in Yerushalayim. I had been planning to go learn at some point, and despite having had the potential opportunity to go over to J.P. Morgan, which bought out Bear Stearns, the events that took place in mid-March made my decision that much clearer. Not only has Hashem provided me with the opportunity to go learn, but He blessed me with the scholarship care of J.P. Morgan. The Bear Mincha Minyan was my really first very regular minyan, and it provided me with such inspiration. The whole concept was foreign to me. The idea that a few dozen men at a major financial institution would take time out of their busy schedule and express their gratitude to Hashem in a conference room within the building, no less, was a big motivator for me. Moreover, nobody was talking. Rarely was there any cell phone interruptions, and some even were able to achieve some serious kavanah. Thank you to everyone who davened for inspiring me with your tefillas. While I sympathize with those who lost money and jobs, we know that everything happens for a reason, and it'll eventually work out for the best. That being said, the collapse of Bear Stearns provided a great deal of musar to anyone who wishes to see it. There are some employees who gave their heart and soul to the company for many years, and some lost thousands or even millions of dollars. In parentheses, Jimmy literally lost $1 billion. They learned the hard way that money is fleeting. Still, there are others who were with the company for only a few months who will receive a nice severance package and already accepted offers elsewhere at higher salaries. There are those who, because of the extraordinary amount of time they spent at the office, missed out on many milestones, birthdays, weddings, and lost it all. And there were those who were just in the right place at the right time. And of course, there are stories of everything in between. There are no accidents in this world. Hashem is in charge. Sometimes we are in certain situations, it is difficult to have a clear perspective. In the business world, it is so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and to lose sight of what really matters. This experience has truly served to clarify for me the idea, and listen well to the sentence, that the only things that are timeless are the mitzvahs that we do and the tzedakah that we give. Bear Stearns will soon be a distant memory, but hopefully this lesson will be with us. What this man is in effect saying is Ishas Kadashov Lo Yiyah. That the only thing that really we have is the mitzvahs and the tzedakah that we give. That's the Lo Yiyah. What we give to the Kain Lo Yiyah. Everything else. There's one person. On Friday he was worth $900 million. And on Monday morning he was worth $10 million. Now you think, well, $10 million, I'll live with that. But when you're worth $900 million and you're left with $10 million, you feel like an ani. And what's out there? I mean, imagine, it's just mind-boggling. So here as we are on erev shavuoth, the yontif of shavuoth is dedicated to one thing, and that is shavuoth is the yontif about appreciating what we have. Shanos alonu teiras emes, v'yivonim in atayim, chayel amata b'seichenu. We have something. We have a Torah, we have a Rebbeinu Shalom, we have mitzvahs, we have something. They can never take that away from us. But if your whole life was Bear Stearns, your whole life with Arthur Anderson, your whole life was all these mighty companies that have literally gone out of business, then you have nothing. And therefore, when we celebrate the Yontif of Shavuos, we should, with this in mind, the context of the times, we should mamish asher bohar bonim mikol ha'amim v'nasam lanu teiras emes chay olam nata b'seichenu ashrei yom shekochaloi ashrei yom Hashem aleikov. We're so lucky. Chivdivonim and atayim. That's what we should come to the Hakara on the Yontif of Shavuos.
This year was presented by Rav Yissocher Frand Shlita.